Stations who choose to pursue projects where editorial direction is shared should adopt transparent policies that will guide their decision-making. TPT's own rallying cry is worth remembering. We will never mislead the public, period. We believe that it is crucial for public media to be fully transparent, not only about our journalism practices, but our funding policies as well. In fact, we believe that that commitment represents a unique opportunity for public media. In today's media environment, transparency can become public media's calling card. We believe each station should commit itself to a specific policy regarding transparency. That policy should include some of the following elements. Number one, if the station receives a grant from a foundation to produce programming, it should consider publishing the amount of the grant and what its contractual obligations entail. If the station engages in a funder editorial partner relationship described earlier, it should disclose the specific nature of that relationship, both financially and editorially. All stations should publish their standards for accepting funding. All stations should publish the editorial guidelines that all of its programs adhere to. All stations should consider disclosing a glossary of terms which explains what certain phrases mean, such as brought to you in part by, or with additional assistance from. We believe, in short, that transparency provides a powerful antidote to concerns over undue influence, and that embracing greater transparency represents a huge opportunity for public media.
So we've talked about principles and our working group on that. The area that Ted was just reviewing really turns a lot in the policy arena, the kinds of things that a board might adopt, guide ongoing operations that are used as, here's how we test out these questions, so do we accept this funding or not, or how do we present this information to the public. So let's turn to a third area that gets kind of down more to the front lines of just the practices that need to guide and inform us on being smart as what we do. The area where increasingly we're engaged in partnerships with others in the creation of our content. So this is the third working group that we launched. It's the last out of the gate. Their work is at the stage mostly of framing up some issues, beginning to ask the questions that will then proceed with recommendations such as those that in the funding and firewalls have begun to bring forward. One of the first things they did was a fun exercise. We called it great dates and bad dates and blind dates. We'll just go with the great dates here today. Just the members of the group themselves reflecting on partnerships they have been involved in and what worked, what made for a great date working with someone else to create content. These were some of the shared themes that emerged from that conversation. That the two partners actually had shared mission and interest. People were trying to do the same thing, as opposed to this and that being somehow grafted together in a partnership. Second thing was a clear division of labor. Who's going to do what? Ted's at that podium, Tom's over here. Everybody brings something to the mix. Partnerships that are one-sided and mostly driven by one party and most of the rest are along for the ride, usually don't have happy endings. Communicate, 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 often and systematically, a recurring theme of those that work. On the key elements of the partnership, put it in writing. It's great to have friendly conversations over lunch, to be buddies and have handshakes, but on partnerships that are going to go the distance, those that aspire to do great and important things, get it down in writing so everyone knows for sure what the partnership's about. Set some benchmarks. How will we know if we're doing what we set out to do? And create some opt-out opportunities if you're not. Now, is this a handbook for success? Of course not, but it's the kind of reflection on what we've done, what we've learned along with the bad days, which we'll save for another time, that can help guide us to more successful community partnerships in creating our content. But for as much as we can look back and learn from what went right and what went wrong, we also have to lean forward in this conversation and think about what are some of the issues that surround partnerships that are kind of at the edges of our experience. So here's 4 things that surfaced in that conversation. One is that more and more of us are involved in content creation around emerging and unfamiliar platforms. And so while the wise old person back in the newsroom or the executive producer has a lot of experience putting together a film for television or a newscast or a one-time documentary, some of the kinds of things around web blogging and social media and how to actually engage in partnerships doing that, not much of a track record to run on. We're kind of making it up as we go along. What should guide us in that space? A second issue is blurring lines of editorial ownership. That is, we're working with partnerships, but some of the content we create, some of the folks the other guys do, and we're cross-linking across our websites, and other people are linking to that, and they're linking our stuff to still other places. You gotta go, wait a minute, where's our stuff and who are we in that mix, and who's their stuff, and is it really understandable, or does it even matter which is our stuff and their stuff? And how do we navigate in that space if we want to be held accountable for what we've done? We want to preserve the integrity, respect, and trust people have for our part of the partnership. Third is the notion that we have some trade-offs to confront if we want to partner with some non-traditional organizations and entities out in our communities. There's both a reward and a risk there. The reward is that by connecting with those who may not have been part of our circle, under our comfortable tent, it is a way that we can move to parts of the community that perhaps we've never addressed. That we can welcome into what we're doing constituencies, whether it's by age, by race and ethnicity, by outlook, by life experience, that can be a part of what we're reflecting back in our public media. But we don't have a history working with them, and maybe they don't have much of a history in creating content. So there's risk in that space as well. And then finally the question of, does this actually really matter to consumers? Or if it does, how does it matter to make these distinctions about the terms of reliability, independence, and things that matter very much to us inside the field? But which of those things, as we present our work to the community, really resonate and make a difference in people choosing us or choosing something else?
So the next steps in this initiative is what we try to present to you in partial form are some of the results that have come out. It's been excellent work by the task forces and a lot of reading material. I'll show you the website here in a moment. We want to finalize that, so we're now in the process of taking this out, getting feedback, and then preparing recommendations that we go out to the whole system. We want to continue to collect resources, references, case studies that are particularly, I think, enlightening because they make all of this very real, and it's hard to get overly dogmatic when you're looking at a real case situation in an individual market. And we want to tackle, I mentioned we had a number of issues, and they're all important. I think the one around employee relations is a key one. That would be ideally our next one. We want to keep the process of going forward. And I would say I've been fortunate to be able to facilitate round robins and also these recent dynamic inquiry sessions. And there is a lot of discussion around, number one, how do we proactively define why we are a valued service in this country? How do we define universal service in a digital era? It is more than simply a technical definition. These elements, I believe, start to get at what this is, why we are here, what is the value of having a true public service media in this country. That's why I'm challenging you, I'm challenging myself to be not just managers, but to be leaders. We have an opportunity here to recast this in a way that is relevant to this new age and to do it in a way that frankly is critical at this point in time. You see some of these images, some of them historical. What do you feel like when you think about public television, when you think about public radio? That sense, almost intangible sense, that I trust this. There is something honest about what is happening here. I can rely on that. That is what we need to work together to make sure that we not only contain, but that we re-articulate in today's world.
To those great words, Ted, I just add that the responsibility is all ours. There's nobody else that can do this for us. There's nobody over there who will do it for you. But to get the outcome, respect, trust that we deserve, that we've worked for many years, is us. We must take this forward into a new era. So that's the challenge before all of us. Where you can read about what we're doing is on this website, pmintegrity.org for public media integrity.org. There's some discussion up there. There's some references already. You can look at examples of principles and policies and codes from everybody from the BBC to maybe the station across town from you. The early dialogues and discussions of the working groups that we've talked about are posted there. We really invite you to read them and tell us what you think and where it's right and where it's wrong. But we reserved about 15 minutes here for some comments on what we've said, questions about how we're doing this, or just any thoughts in this area that anyone might want to stand up and throw out either to Ted or me or to the group as a whole. And there's a wandering microphone right back there.